Ed, thank you for being here.
It's great to be here, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you write about. Give us your story.
Hi, I'm Ed Brzychcy. I'm currently the executive producer for leadfromthefront.net. I work in leadership development and have for about the past 7 years. I've run my own consultancy up through about COVID time, at which point I've taken this pivot into digital media productions. And really, I talk about leadership development in organizations and how to build up teams and people within them.
Nice. And do you write about that topic as well?
Absolutely, yes.
Good, good, good. Now, how many books have you written over the years?
I have 3 books currently available on Amazon.com.
Nice, 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 nice. So thinking about your writing process, obviously you've done this multiple times. What were some of the struggles you faced that maybe prevented you from getting started or prevented you from finishing that manuscript?
That's a great question. Early on, it's you get the idea, I want to write a book, and it's just this big, just scary endeavor almost. And sitting down and trying to frame the idea and put together a cohesive, um, even just chapters or even sentences is just kind of daunting when you have this big picture in your head. Hit a breakthrough for me a little bit after this time last year when I was going through a lot of old material, and this was getting ready to write my third book, was finding just blogs and articles and everything written everywhere where it was just, wow, I've got a ton of content here. And just that granular process of writing and understanding that, yes, we want to write this big book. We want multiple chapters. We want great story. We want this cohesive whole, but it really starts with here's a little bit here, here's a little bit there. And telling myself as I write my next book is very much be happy with writing a 200 word day, because if it's 200 quality words, you're that much closer to your finished product, and being happy with that and being able
Mm,
to be confident with that as a step, as a big stepping stone towards overall completing your goal.
definitely, definitely. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who are writing their books and they come in and they're like, okay, I know all of these things because I've been in this field for 10,
Mhm.
15 years. How do I turn it into a book? What's kind of your advice for someone in that position where they have so much knowledge and kind of the process of getting that into
Mhm.
something that makes sense to write, but also that makes sense to read?
Yeah. Take a look and outline, figure out what it is that you want to write about. What are all the different pieces of that? Yes, here's my book, but here's all my different chapter ideas. The book I'm working on right now, it's the third book in my leadership reflection series, all 30 chapters outlined out. Here's what I want to talk about in each of them. And some of my first writing steps is not write the chapter, but write 5 or 6 bullet points about what I want to put in there.
Mm-hmm. And how deep does your outlining process go? Because I know a lot of people, they hear outline and they think back to middle school when it was like 1,000 note cards that you were writing everything out on. So what does that process look like for you?
I use 2 great products for writing. I don't know if we can pitch them here, but
Yeah, go for it.
Plotter and Scrivener. I use Plotter. It helps me put all those little note cards in order and shift them around and put all the little, just not even details, but just those bullet points into that. And then I export that into Scrivener, where I start to build out the manuscript and flesh everything out. So it's not so much of a strict ABC, old school Oxford outline like we did in middle and high school, but much more of a kind of a free flowing process of, okay, here's kind of what I want to talk about. Let's find the different pieces of this. Catching myself when I go too deep down one rabbit hole or another, finding other areas I need to explore a little bit deeper as I balance everything out. And then by the time I export it into the final manuscript process, I've got a pretty good idea of what all the different pieces are, and then just pace myself as I write it.
Nice, nice. And last question about your outlining process.
Mhm.
About how long does that normally take you?
For the leadership reflections books, I have a great just outline built now and a framework for them. So it's actually fairly quick. For now, it's the third book in the series. Another book I'm working on is a collection of veteran ideas and inspiration from military leadership. That has taken me, it's been on 4 years running that I've been working on that, trying to find the right framework and idea and way to express it and put it together. So it very much varies.
Gotcha. So outlining isn't just something that you kind of do in a weekend. It's something that takes more time and thought and development for you.
No, I would say it's the majority of my process. It's really trying to frame my ideas, how to structure them, And then this way, when it comes down to writing, it's just, okay, I've got little bits and pieces here to fill in. And you can find ways to fill them in. You find ways to work the segues in there and tie the ideas together. But that's almost the easy part.
Interesting. I think a lot of people come into this and they're like, okay, cool. I have my ideas and now the writing is going to be the hard part. But that's
Mhm.
good for people to hear that sometimes it's the other way around, that the outlining is
It's,
where the bulk of the work is.
yeah, proper preparation with anything that we do is if you come in well prepared with a good solid framework on what you do, and it's nothing nice set in stone. I'll still be moving chapters around and ideas and the places where I feel like they fit better. Cut and paste is a wonderful tool, but it's having at least something to go off of makes, and then the writing is, you double check for grammar and everything else. But other than that, it's just hand jamming on the keyboard and getting those ideas out there. Sometimes I even like to use text to speech just to put my ideas a little bit easier.
Interesting. Now, question about the text side of that, because I
Mhm.
have generally not been impressed with text to speech things. There's normally so much editing that has to happen with that. Is
Yes.
there a tool that you recommend that does a really good job with text to speech or
Dragon, once you
speech to text?
speech to text, I do like Dragon. Did take some time to train it towards the accent and everything, and it took time for me to learn to dictate, where at the end of a sentence, full stop,
Sure.
and developing that habit when I'm using that tool, which took a little bit of time because otherwise you do just get that blob of text, and it's editing that. You may as well just put that in the recycling bin somewhere and start over.
Sure, that makes sense. Now, switching directions a little bit, you mentioned earlier that one of the things that helped you in terms of your writing mindset is being happy if it was only 200 words because they were quality words. Were there
Mhm.
any other mindset shifts that were really helpful for you to get that draft done, especially with your first book?
With the first book was an absolute struggle. I actually translated a training program I developed into the book, and finding the right words, finding the right ideas, the right ways to express them was just a huge challenge. And I think for developing your voice as a writer, it is just time and practice. Journaling, being able to, I scribble a page or two in a journal every morning just to get ideas out there and practice. And sometimes I'll even go back to that because I'll underline something because I just like the way it sounds. So
Mhm.
the more ways you give yourself to practice your craft, the better it's going to be. But it's a lifetime process. It's when I was putting this collection of essays together, I was looking at my writing from 4 years ago and just going, oh my God, did I really write that? And just finding better ways to articulate ideas and put words together. And just so it makes more sense for the reader, has the impact that I truly want to impart through this presentation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done the same thing, looking back at old manuscripts on your computer that have never seen the light of day, but
Yes.
you're like, wow, it's hard sometimes
Mhm.
to look back at that, but there can be gems hidden in there for sure.
Absolutely. There's gems in that. And I think one of the best ways I ever saw it put was I was rereading the Gunslinger series from Stephen King, and he had rewritten the first book. And he had the little forward, hey, this is the new edition. And he just basically explained, when I first wrote this, I was a young writer with young ideas and young practices. Rereading it, I wanted to fix a lot of that. And so
Mm.
it's okay if it's not perfect. It's something that I put second editions out for my first two books this year as well. Just little tweaks and changes, and we can republish. It's not the end of the world if it's not perfect, and it very rarely will be, especially within writing.
Yeah, that can be really reassuring for writers. It's like, okay, you don't have to nail this the first time. You can have second editions and things like that. So
Mhm.
thanks for bringing that up.
Oh.
Last question then for you. Most of the people that are going to be watching this are first time writers. They've never
Mhm.
written a book before. They're new to this whole process. So is there anything else you want to share with them that would help them go from saying, okay, I want to write a book to having that final draft?
Is just be prepared to put in a lot of time for it. It's a craft. It's just like building a house. It's never going to be done in a day, but the more time, the more practice you put into it, the more patient you are with yourself, the better off. And sometimes another great piece of advice I got from a master class with Neil Gaiman was, when you're done with the manuscript, walk away. I'm current, and just be able to let it digest, let it sit. And then a week, 2 weeks later, go back, reread it, and look back at it with fresh eyes.
That's a great tip. That's what I teach my students too, is when you finish that first draft, you do not look at it for a week. Like it has to stop. You have to go live your life, and then you can come back and edit it. So
Definitely.
absolutely. And thank you so much. This was really great information you shared.
No, thank you, Jesse. Appreciate the time for today.